Welcome, dear friends, and good afternoon to this amazing Saturday where we partake here together with the SSB efforts to bring one more session, one more talk for you to enlighten our lives together. Um, I would like to start this afternoon, as usual, as reading a passage of the book Happy Life, and then we will um, pray together so we can go on into our afternoon and then into the evening work that we have prepared. The message from Joanna de Angelis in the book Happy Life says, "When one really forgives, one forgets the evil received. If you forgive, but continue referring to the event, you are giving life to it. Work on the feelings of personal inferiority that suffering has fixed in your memory and be thankful for the opportunity to forgive. How could you evolve without tests that result in more improvement? The forgiveness that you now give will be your protector tomorrow when you yourself need another's benevolence and forgiveness. Forgiving is always better for the one who practices it. Always act this way and you will live." This is actually chapter 52 or message 52 of the book Happy Life. In the old version, it's page 65, and I will mark it off in case someone needs to read it and dive into a little one. We'll be more than glad to share it again. Again, by the mentor spirit Joanna de Angelis, through the medium Divaldo Franco. On this note, I would like to invite everyone to pray with us so we can start our evening in a positive way along with this beautiful message. And you may close your eyes and open your heart to this moment. Although in our homes, we invite everyone to find a comfortable yet respectful position where we truly connect with our mentors, the mentors of our house, the SSB mentors, to help us and guide us in this moment of enlightenment. Dear Lord, we ask you that you guide our minds and hearts, the environment in which we live in, so that the message will be exercised in our daily lives, will serve as guidance to all of us in the now and in the future. We wish that our brothers and sisters in both realms of life can receive these messages, these ideals, these teachings that the mentors, the authors of this amazing work has brought to us, sharing with each one of us the kindness, the goodness, the reparation of life. This way, we invite the best of us to multiply this message amongst ourselves. Also praying for those who are in despair, who are going through difficulties and challenging moments, hoping that they become completers, hoping that they can survive the challenges with a positive attitude. This way, dear Lord, we thank you for this amazing opportunity, and so be it. And as we give continuation to this amazing topic, planetary transition, as we started this endeavor at the beginning of this year, now on session 9, where we'll be discussing chapters 17 and 18 of this amazing book. We would like to, before we even begin in going to the chapter that we will be discussing today, in terms of titles and the things that we're going to be saying, I would like to invite everyone to truly open up our hearts and leave it aside any judgment, prejudgment, any ideas that we have, adversely or not, towards some of the topics that we will dive in. And I'm not going to say what it is. We will go through as we're presenting. But it's important for us to start to take a different perspective in terms of what we will see and what we will partake on. What I'm trying to say is that anytime we go into our conversation, anytime we go into a discussion, it's important for us to step out of what we know or what we think we know, and the difficulties of the past. This allows us, this really prepares us to make decisions that are not, let's say, biased to what we are. And it's okay for us to make sure and utilize what we know thus far in our lives, because this protects us. But in certain cases, also, this tends us to judge and tends to lead us to judgment that pretty much is not well constructive. Most importantly, is because the reason I'm asking this is because what we'll be discussing today is part of our past. And when we put ourselves into the perspective that we perhaps are responsible for the many things that are happening around us, then it leads us to extract from us what we have done wrong to apply the correctiveness that we have also learned. So you will see as we are bringing the information, so that we can better prepare ourselves into the future. Because the mentor of this book, when I say the mentor, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, is not speaking to a group of people or certain individuals. He's speaking to all of us. He's inviting all of us to partake on the endeavor that is happening in the world right now. So to lead ourselves into the discussion or the analysis of the two chapters, we have seen thus far all the 16 chapters, and the last two chapters were very intriguing as well, because we went through the enlightening experiences and the reincarnation program of the spirits from Alcyon, where these amazing spirits, well elevated spirits, they're coming to reincarnate on planet Earth, so that we can they can help us progress, morally speaking. And they will also bring, because of their more advancement, there will be some advancement as well in terms of our physiology as well. So we saw many discussion around that, as we have been discussing for several other chapters now. And we see Dr. Santana actually explaining the beauty of life. And we're going to revisit some of that today with the chapter 17 and 18. But today, broadening the scope of our work and the thoughts and profound dialogues that they were having with these other spirits. So, starting with chapter 17, broadening the scope of our work. Right after Dr. Santana's heartfelt prayer, soft transcendental melodies wafted through the fragrant air of nature, penetrating us deeply and bringing us to tears. Remember, Dr. Santana was actually praying, pretty much, speaking with the parents, the future parents and the spirits in the last chapter that we visit. And then at the end of the chapter, he was praying for these encounters as they were happening. So as he was praying, we found ourselves in this, they found themselves in this really vibrant and very happy moment. And the Dr. Santana started explaining, I'm going to take a step back here, the state of the planet Earth right now, and the reasons why we are in such a despair, difficulties that we're living right now. Who do we have as a guiding model? What we have done, where we missed the mark, and what we need to do in terms to regain back let's say, the happiness that we deserve in terms of God creating us to be happy, right? To be constructive, to be good beings. Obviously, we have choices, and we respect choices, our choices. At least we ought to. But we have missed the mark somehow. So much so that we see so many of us clashing nowadays, with the destructive ideals, the situations that we're going through, even in this pandemic that we're going through. We see that we are not connecting as we thought we would be connecting more now than ever. In this case, he brings Jesus as the center point of the attention, the beginning, and then towards the end of the explanation, he says the same thing. Jesus has been our sublime friend and mentor, our guide and model from the very beginning, leading us to happiness and building the kingdom of God in our hearts. Nonetheless, each one of us is responsible for setting the course to follow. We have our choices. There are those who prefer the flower-strewn paths of the magic of illusion. But those flowers soon demonstrate their fragility by withering when touched by reality. Many others choose disenchantment due to a few natural failures, and they descend into the pit of discouragement, surrendering to uselessness and complaining, with which they belittle existence. Still others are enthusiastic at the start, but soon give up as they face challenges and difficulties. And lastly, a few stay devoted, working the ground, removing the stones, and improving the pathways so as to make it easy to follow by those who are behind. So here we see who is the guiding model, and where are we in connection, in relation to this whole thing? Why does it have a correlation or relation to it? Well, we can, and many of us, we can find ourselves in these few examples that was given by Dr. Santana here. Sometimes we are before reincarnating, we're in this passion, this drive to be the best person we can be, the best spirit we can be, and then when we encounter certain difficulties, we tend to say, you know what, this is too hard for me. I don't know what I signed up for. Kind of like doing a job at our a task at our job, right? That we start all enthusiastic, and then when it gets for us to face the few difficulties that this task will demand of us, then guess what? We retract and we start complaining about it. And then we enter in this complaining mode that I don't want to do this is too hard, and life goes by and time goes by and we don't do anything. But some of us, and in some cases, we also find ourselves in this amazing ideals, removing stones, right? We see mothers, we see parents doing this, we see people dealing with the difficulties of life, and they continue on. They're removing the stones out of the problems out of their ways and the ways of others to lead the way for those who are behind us. When I say behind, the young generation, those who need more resources because they're not either morally or intellectually elevated, so they need this help. And we do this in many cases unconsciously because we have this inside of us and we are able to recognize this need, all working for our Master Jesus. And when I say working for our Master Jesus, it's not that he is the boss, but following the examples that he actually presented to us, because he himself said that we can do what he did and much more. And he already bestowed upon us, if we can say this way, the capabilities that he had and much more. Continuing with this, we would like to continue in this idea and show that in the causes, the consequences, and we're going to go back and forth in this right here to explain to us, not to put fear on anyone's mind or heart, but to truly show the reality that we're going through. The unavoidable law of evolution is inexorable. However, it utilizes the resources of each wayfarer who chooses that what seems best, certain or not, of the ultimate results. Having assumed this responsibility, such individuals begin to live according to their chosen directives, subject to the consequences of their decisions. It's amazing that he brings this idea here of decisions, right? That we can make decisions along our pathway of evolution, the law of progress. If you go to the Spirit's book, the third part of the Spirit's book, chapter 9, you will have the ability to study what Spiritism brings to us in this idea of the law of progress. We can't deny it. We can't go against it. We all progress. As much as we want to stop the progress, right? You stop the idea that we have to push ourselves out of our comfortable zones. It's there. It's going to happen. but we still have choices, and we can choose different paths. And this is beautiful because we think that it has to be this or that way, but whatever we do, we have to understand that there are consequences, right? So if I take this path along with the path that others are choosing, there will be consequences. And I like to bring the others here because consequently we respond to one another's choices as well. We are gregarious beings. So he continues and says, envelopment in the flesh, however, is like a cloud that blurs the sunlight. It produces some forgetfulness of the responsibilities the spirit assumed before immersion in the somatic body, producing conflicts and uncertainties about its reality result from misguided behaviors in the past. Here, it's a blast in disguise, and as well as a situation that leads us to continue in the errors of the past, right? Because in certain cases, we cannot deny that if we know a little bit of what we have done in the past, we can make direct corrections. However, in certain cases, this can be very detrimental as well. God knows, and God gives us the glimpses, if we can say this way, of what has happened in the past for us to make corrections right now. In most cases, we want our mentors. Sometimes we consult mediums. We consult. We want to know what have I done to be in this position, right? Or how should I act? Well, just look around, see what is happening to you, and that alone will guide you in making the corrections that we need. But in most cases, as we are seeing now, our past, or forgiveness of the past, allows us to enter again into this misguiding ideals of the past, that we continue in the errors that happened in the past. For this and the other reasons, some spirits weakened by a lack of moral strength for facing struggles let themselves be dragged to the cliffs of darkness, overcome by hatred because of the complicated, unfortunate situation in which they are enmeshed, struggling against the impositions of evolution as if it were possible to impede it, and preventing others from evolving by creating obstacles for them. The reason we bring this here is because Dr. Santana is bringing this idea of our choices, and sometimes because, again, things are seems hard to us, we find ourselves in with a hurdle in front of us or a situation that is adverse to us, we tend to create more masses than really helping ourselves and helping others, and we create obstacles for others as well. How many times in our evolutionary history have we enthusiastically assumed commitments to the truth only to abandon them soon after, attracted by the smiling myths of pleasure? And again, we go back to the idea of the very unfortunate materialistic life that we tend to live, in terms of just thinking about this life, right? That we only live once, and then we give in into these physical pleasures, these myths. There's sometimes not even a myth, a physical, but the ideals that perhaps it's not constructive and it's only for this lifetime. He then continues, on many such occasions we have found Jesus, and we were enthralled with his liberating purpose. And I bring this amazing picture here, the Sermon of the Mount by Karl Bloch in 1877, a very interesting picture. And I bring this because in many cases we hear the Sermon of the Mount, we hear the teachings of our Master Jesus, and we become baffled. We become, oh my gosh, this is an amazing teaching, an amazing ideal to live by it, but do we truly follow it? In the name of his love, if we don't follow, we connect ourselves to imperial power. We stop being persecuted only to become persecutors ourselves. We abandon humility under the robes of pride and arrogance. So we take the message and we flip the coin. Instead of using to help, we use it to destroy it. And this is the beginning of what we are going to bring in terms of the state of our planet right now. And that's why I would like to invite you again Just open yourself up. Let's not be judgmental. And let's hear what Dr. Santana has to say fully, which I'm not going to bring the whole thing. I ask you to please read the chapter so you can make your own conclusions as well. But this is very alarming. This is very helpful to all of us in order for us to get out of where we are right now. Alienated instead of love the disbelievers we intended to convert, and the confused who we should have enlightened. And then he goes into the explanations of the tough moments that we created in his name, the Crusades, persecution of the Moors and the Jews under the name of the martyrs of the cross. And then he even mentions of what was happening then at the beginning of or I wouldn't say the beginning of the long years of the church, where indulgence were an ancient practice that allowed the Pope to mitigate or nullify the sins of the repentance faithfully, or those who intended to undertake cleansing penance because of their wrongful acts. Nonetheless, Pope Leo X made them official through document that liberated any sinners from their most heinous crimes by paying the amount set for this purpose. So we see that these pleasures took place not obviously because of our choices. These wrong ideas took place, but we come in contact with a beautiful message, the new revelation, right? In terms of Jesus coming to us and calling us to love one another as we love ourselves, and we distort it. We change it completely, and we apply towards others for our own benefits to live this, again, these amazing indulgences that we create for ourselves, materialistic, that is. Among these experimentations, we try to impede the advance of science. That happened as well. We went through those great minds that God have given us to change our lives, and we still do. We still prevent science from flourishing, from helping us to guide. And this is within the religious arena in general, right? Because we see some religions that are completely against science altogether. And we made martyrs of thousands of workers of Jesus in the various sectors of thought and ideals, solely because they did not submit to the will of our misguided determinations. It's very alarming. So hang in there. On the Iberian Peninsula, for example, following the terrible examples in the other countries, in the name of the Catholic hegemony and fidelity to the Pope, we used our ignoble resources to remain in the political, religious, and cultural domain of society, expelling from the beautiful lands those we called heretics, only because they did not accept our Jesus, the way we perceive Jesus. So, look, it's way more than we think. The situation that we're going through right now, it didn't start yesterday. It started long ago. And the worst thing is that it is based on our Master Jesus' teachings. When we took what is simple, when we took what is very heart-giving, and we applied towards others to benefit us, to say the least. But there is more. Hang in there. Here's some causes, some consequences, and obviously he brings the antidote, and I would like to call choice as well, because these tragic events it didn't start yesterday. So for the antidote to be applied overnight, it's quite frankly, it's a fallacy if we think that this is going to happen overnight. This is not a discouraging message, but realistic rather, so we can prepare ourselves to what is to come. And Manuel Miranda will bring this as well in future chapters. We bring this picture of the action and reaction because when you push, guess what? Whatever item, whatever matter, it's going to push back at you. So this is just basic physics, and this happens as well in terms of feelings, in terms of ideals too. Life, however, present cosmic conscience writes the undisputable truth of the divine laws on human conscience, and there is no one who can escape the internal presence. That is why we are reaping what we have sown. What we live right now, what we are seeing right now in the different arenas of life, and I'm saying politically, religiously, even in our interactions, in our circles of life that we find ourselves in difficult moments, guess what? It's just a consequence of what we have sown. In this critical moment of planetary and human transformations, we are witnessing the great struggle between the forces of the good and those who say they are members of the forces of evil, each using the resources that characterize them. While love uses the patience that educates, instruction that enlightens, work that dignifies, and renunciation of the poisonous passions that debase, hatred, the child of spite and bitterness, sows rage, encourages debauchery, and extends the area of violence in vain attempts to promote aggressive responses. The challengers of iniquity assail without reluctance all those who love duty and progress, seeking to defeat them without any sense of respect for the right to live as they choose. If anything, folks, from this talk tonight, this afternoon into this evening, that I would like you to really pay attention is this amazing paragraph. Because here we have Dr. Santana, an amazing soul who is leading an amazing spirit, who is leading an amazing work in the spiritual work, as these minds are, these hearts are coming from Alcyon to reincarnate here, is telling us this is what you have. One side you have goodness, who is working to educate, to enlighten, to dignify, right? We have also on the other side, we have the hatred, right? That sows rage, that encourages debauchery, that extended the area of violence in the vain attempts to promote aggressive responses. So which side are we in right now? Because sometimes we clash within ourselves without proper education of what is going on. And I'm now referring to what's going on planet Earth right now in the different arenas of life. The questions that we have, right? Is what we're seeing dignifying? Is what we're seeing truly enlighten other people? Is what we're seeing educating others? Or is what we're seeing creating more rage, right? Debauchery, or any type of violence whatsoever. And remember, anything, you may define violence differently than I do, or than anybody else does. But we have to, at the end of the day, we can get to a point where a common sense where anything that affects me negatively will affect others too. And anything that makes me happy quite often will be also affecting others positively too. So these are the things that we are inviting one another to think about it with this this paragraph, and what Dr. Santana is bringing to us as well. But again, and this is the one of the antidotes that we can live, that we can utilize. But it also becomes a choice, right? Because we are in our evolutionary path and we have choice. Does it not remind us of our devious behaviors in the past? It is therefore understandable that we are targets they want to hit due to the evil we did to them when we had the opportunity to help them get out of the deplorable situations in which they lingered. Their hostile moments, still alive deep within their souls, result from their sentiments since ancient times. Mistakenly, they yearn for retaliation and for peace at the same time, thinking peace will come after they have quenched their thirst for revenge. So it's a consequence. If we see the fight of the good and the evil battling right now, it's because it's only a consequence of what we have done. And if we choose the good path, right, to sow happiness and educate and do the things that we have mentioned, guess what? We will have others who will be fighting against. They don't understand what's happening behind our change, our proposal of changing the environment. Hence, once more, the reason why we're receiving minds from another constellation where they will come that has no connection with the past whatsoever to promote the goodness that we would like to see on planet Earth. So this is important because there is a higher reason for these minds to come to us. And we have mentioned this already, because whenever I see the change, I am committed to the change, and I apply myself, but I see a group of people coming against me, I tend to kind of slow down, right? As we have mentioned with our choices, sometimes we see the good in front of us, we are pumped up to do the best we can. However, something happens, we then fall back into the same mistakes of the past, or we engage on the evil that is presented to us. To give continuation, how should we behave towards one another and the consequences? How have we behaved, in this case? I brought here the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and our friends from the Muslim faith as well. This is how it's called because they are descendants of the Abrahamic religions, ideals, right? So we're in the same boat. We converge in this idea in this, let's say, proposal to change our lives, and we're still battling. And this is something else that Dr. Santana explains to us in this chapter, that we have been through wars, through many difficulties throughout time, created in many cases, in most of the cases, by Christians for our benefits, when we went against these groups of people, these other groups of people. He's referring here to the Moors, which were the early Muslims, if we can say this way. I mean, we have to go into more technical terms and explanations in order for us to get into the Muslim faith. But the Muslims or the Moors and the Judaic faith as well. But as we know, we have been clashing with one another for quite some time. And we see it is perfectly understandable that the spirits who suffer weaknesses at our hands during our rule is still harbor a bad memory of our conduct, having plunged into the deep gorges of the lower spirit world, where they started to gather together and build their strongholds, today transforming into almost hellish, though transitory, regions, where they plot the destruction of Christians though on the earth. Christian thought on the earth. So let us take an example. All these groups of people who were smashed, who were really denigrated over time by Christianity, the so-called Christianity, which is not exactly what Jesus has taught us. They are now in the lower regions together, right? Whether they are even though they are from different faiths, together to fight the Christians that are now trying to rebuild the world, trying to rebuild a good sense of moral and intellectual living. So we see how we're clashing, and it's not, again, something that happened yesterday. If we look carefully, we can see how much the Lord's message has degenerated, even today, with sects and denominations multiplying fiercely, each claiming primacy of knowledge and supremacy of the truth, transforming the theta into what indulgences used to be. So even with the new religions, new sects that are coming up, we still believe, and I say again, we still believe that we have the whole truth, that we understand everything. That if you don't follow my way, guess what? There will be some consequences to it. And he also touched on the aspect or the Spiritist arena, where he says, and the disciples of the Comforter, in this case, in Spiritism, how have they been behaving? I'm going to say we, or they're not already glaring differences in the lamentable schism by currents that adhere to X, Y, and Z at the expenses of their Kardecian codification. From ethic, we all drawn the liberating knowledge due to do not erring, aggressive, conceit, vindictive, persecuting, and insensate mediums appear daily, claiming supremacy, complete, completely forgetting the lessons of the excellent medium of God, which was Jesus. So he's making an analysis of what has happened, what is happening in the different arenas of life right now. And this is religion, right? We're only focused here on the religion thus far, but this is again, it can be applied to any area, because we're now see also naturally, and this should happen, the analysis of religion, on how religion affects our decisions, how our faith affect our religion. Of course it affects, right? But the problem is when our religion is separatist, right? When we're separating ourselves due to the fact that I believe in this and you don't, guess what? You're not part of my tribe anymore. So going back to the tribal systems, where we exclude a great number of people because this or that person or this group of people do not follow what we understand, or do not follow, as Dr. Santana has mentioned, my Jesus, our Jesus, right? Or whatever we want to call. So what needs to happen? He gives us the ideals of what needs to happen. It's amazing how the spirits, they're very enlightening, and they help us in many ways, even given the antidotes. A revision of our current social behavior is urgent in the religious, political, and artistic communities, in which has been replaced by the erotic, and the heinous crime of abortion has become an act of courage worth of imitation, proclaimed by opinions, multipliers, and the famous women as well. So the whole thing needs to change. We need to change our conditions on how we see these areas of our lives. And no better than a fresh mind, a fresh start for this to happen, right? There are well-intended people in this planet. There are well-guided individuals. But what we see right now is that we are hitting the same key in the keyboard, thinking that there will be something different will come out of it. We are doing the same thing over and over and over. The true explanation of insanity, right? Thinking that we will have a different outcome. Like the Stoic times of primitive Christianity, it is urgent to return to the simple, unadorned Jesus, to the portrait of his teachings and his natural way of life. Let's just be humble. Let's just be ourselves. Let's just be simple. Let's not try to be something that we are not, or claims ourselves to be something that we are not. Because sometimes we have the capability to do so, or to say that we are this or that, and sometimes we don't, and we still claim it. We still think that we are evolved beings, that we don't need help, we can do ourselves, and we continue to err as we used to err in the past. Jesus, today as yesterday, and tomorrow as today, is our motto. Victorious over time. He is waiting for his message to actually be lived as taught by his example. There is no other alternative but to advance on the path of victory over the lower tendencies. So here, as we mentioned at the beginning, he starts this chapter with our Master Jesus and ends the chapters with our Master Jesus as well, giving us this reminder, amazing reminder, based on what has happened, on what's currently happening on earth right now, and will continue to happen if we don't change. However, progress is inevitable, and this must happen on planet Earth, and that is why now we're going to go into the on chapter 18, where we will dive again into the a continuation of this explanation of that he was giving, and the examples that are happening on planet Earth that has happened for many decades now, but more aggressively now in terms of these spirits from the from Alcyone to come over here and incarnate here to bring to boost the progress of planet Earth. Chapter 18, Thought and Profound Dialogues. So our dear friend asks the mentor again, Dr. Santana, and says the following: I believe you might be preparing us for experiences that are much more meaningful than our present ones, correct? And again, they notice that this is Yvonne Costa, by the way. They notice this is actually a alarming, let's say, reminder, as well as a preparation to the drastic moments that is up to come. But this is in the future. Your explanations of our responsibilities would lead me to believe that our victims are in need of us in their hopeless environment. Would you mind telling us a bit more? And here's the beautiful thing, that it goes hand in hand to what I proposed everyone at the beginning of our talk tonight. Our purpose in presenting such information is to awaken in all the sentiments of responsibility concerning the unfortunate events taking place on the planet and the wave of despair sweeping over it. We see the bloody battles resulting from international terrorism, in which, in the very beginning, East and West confronted each other. We mustn't forget that they are remnants of the tragic crusades which led Westerners to loot and pillage at the command of fanatical kings and other semi-barbarians, who, in the name of defending the empty tomb of Jesus Christ, advanced with their armies like starving locusts on the cultural treasures and riches they believed they could take from those they deemed their enemies, without any grounds for such a wrongful conclusion. Rivers of blood ran deep, and profound resentment raised barriers between the two cultures, which should have joined each other in order to benefit humanity as a whole. His idea is not to put down Christianity of the past. His idea is not to put down one side or the other. His idea is not to bring more confrontational events between us, but quite the opposite, to explain to us why we're going through this right now. And if we see difficulties in the future, as we try to become a better being, as we strive to follow Jesus' messages, it's not that so that we don't feel discouraged, so that we don't stop and continue to do what we're supposed to do, because the bloody battles that we have conducted now will have also bloody now presents to us as bloody battles to fix it, right? So it's like we plant this fruit. Guess what? We will harvest the same fruit. So if we don't change our ways, if we don't follow this idea in a more positive and courageous way, we're just going to continue in the same path. Now, as we said again, this is the alarming fact that we can bring, not to discourage anyone or to bring fear to anyone's mind. God has given us this beautiful opportunity, and as we know, the law of progress is inevitable to all of us and to this planet as well. If we continue in the wrong ways of the past, we will be invited to continue our development in a different place, because life on Earth has to also evolve in the many different areas that we live that we would like to analyze. If we're vibrating right now in the political arena, if we're vibrating right now in the moral arena of helping minds, of extending a hand to others, living basically very well in certain terms, in certain conditions, as a family member or someone at work. Guess what? If we don't do the best that we can, and we don't choose this righteous path, we'll be invited to continue someplace else, as we have seen already this immigration of individuals into other locations, from there to here, from here to there. The spirit armies of the lower realms, which for the moment are sowing heinousness on the planet, are led by victims of the disgraceful Inquisition under the command of former Jewish rabbis and Moorish ulemas, who had been thrown into infested dungeons and either tortured to death or burned alive after suffering every kind of torture. So here we have again the consequence of what we are facing right now. If it is difficult right now, this is the reason right here that these armies of the lower realms are being gathered or being led by Jewish rabbis of the past and Moorish ulemas. And you may ask, Leo, wait a minute, but these are doctors of the law. But remember, we made them suffer. We as Christians made them suffer. And if we're trying to establish a new beginning, a new start on planet Earth, they will come in with full force to stop it, because they don't believe in our change based on what we have done in the past. The spirits on these arms, as well, as Dr. Santana says, are the results of the persecution established by the Papal Bull from 1478 and through 1536. And he goes into this analysis of all the different things that we have done, that we have, if we haven't done directly, we also followed, that caused these tortures and these deaths as well that he mentioned here. The love of Jesus has since long ago called us to implement a program to redeem our wrongdoings by seeking those who we all offended, tortured, and led into misfortune. Since we are living at a time postponed the opportunity to conscience search and find our brothers and sisters in misery who remain in the labyrinth of hatred. So remember, the message by Joanna de Angelis at the beginning was to what? Forgive. And what is the best way to present our forgiveness to what is happening to us? Is to take the moment courageously and say, thank you. Unfortunately, the outcome that I want is not happening in the now, but my persistence in this endeavor with our Master Jesus will pay off one day. And we're receiving help. We're receiving this influx of new minds and new hearts to help us as well. Committed as we are alongside thousands of other groups of spirits working to implement the new era, especially in the preparation for the reincarnation of luminaries of the past, as well as our guests from Alcyon, we have been monitoring the hostile siege of the spirits I mentioned earlier in their efforts to impede the ongoing program. So you see that it's not that it's all fine and dandy when these spirits are reincarnating here. They're going through pushbacks. And these are the higher order spirits that are conducting this work. So not only he mentions that we are receiving this influx of higher minds from Alcyon, but also he reminds us that higher order spirits of philosophy, art, religions, and the politics who reincarnated here in the past and boost our intellectual and moral progress, they will be reincarnating too, to maintain this progress that is inevitably to all of us. And he reminds us that the only way that we will conduct and continue with this work is that we bring this, and he uses the word uncrucified Jesus to lead us in the way, right? That is persistence, that is kind, that is loving, right? And he alerts us that it's not for us to continue a battle of blood, but now engaging to a battle of readdressing our past, helping whom we have hurt in the past. They will have their choices, just as we have their choices in the past, as we have choices right now. But at the end of the day, this is not of the good and bad side that we see in movies or anything, but truly a calling. And if you want to make it that way, it's okay. But truly a calling for us to become a much better being who will also construct a better future for ourselves, because hopefully we'll be given the opportunity to reincarnate here on Earth. Then we move on into this chapter, the hands-on work, right? Because much like chapter 16, they go into houses, into the locations where these spirits, the higher order spirits, would be reincarnating. In this case here, they go into the house of Herminio and Rosalina. they were a very poor and humble spirits couple that they recently married. They got married, and they had this amazing, um, um, let's say, the habit, a good habit of hitting of reading the gospel according to Spiritism every night, and they were able to prepare their condition, their environment in such a way that they were given the ability to receive one of these minds from Alcyone and one of these hearts from Alcyone as their kid. Differently from the previous chapters, that we were addressing the insemination, right, artificial insemination for these mothers to become pregnant. In this case here, it was actually done in the cases that we'll bring in this afternoon. They were actually done naturally. And they were going to the mothers to be were going to get pregnantly in the conventional way. The in some of these cases, he actually goes into the analysis of how the spirits present the life in Alcyone and the higher realms that they came from. The visitor said he was strongly interested in enjoying his future illuminative experience, bringing inner yearnings of love and an immense desire to contribute to the transformation of the planet and its society, that he had prepared himself before coming to Earth in a special vessel in order to observe the level of achievements already attained, and that chose to choose the endeavor in which he would be the most useful. So we bring this here because in many cases here, Dr. Santana, Manuel Filomena de Miranda, they're dealing with these minds, and they are bringing to us a glimpse of what these spirits are, or how evolved these spirits are. So you see, there is a preparation. They have no connection with planet Earth, but want to give back in terms of evolutionary their evolutionary path, what they received, back to someone. So it's much like when we are trying to help someone whom we never see, we never connected before, which is kind of hard for us to perceive, right? Because we also have our connections indirectly or directly or indirectly. But these beings, they never been connected to us, and now they're thinking, okay, this is part of evolution. And when we think that when we reach a level of evolution in our lives, that we're just going to settle, we're not going to have to do anything. But they are evolved, being much more evolved than we are, and they have committed to help the ones who are behind, in that case, us. Giving continuation, this is another spirit who is actually with them as they moving to the different locations that they're visiting, and connecting the spirits with the future to be parents, especially the mothers. One of them said he described the beauty of the realm in which he had dwelled until recently, the plethora of colors clothing nature, and the indescribable harmony that reigns on that home of indefinable progress. He referred to the absence of suffering as we understood it, the fraternity and the coexistence in mutual assistance, the joys and gratitude to the supreme creator of the universe, worshipped in spirit and in truth, and the beautiful achievements of intelligence allied with the sentiments as well. Intelligence aligned with sentiments. I'll say it again, intelligence aligned with sentiments. Do we see that on planet Earth yet? No. Sometimes we tend to act really based on our feelings, our sentiments. Sometimes we're very straightforward, that we're so logical that we forget to put the feelings into the equation, into our decisions. It's interesting that that these conversations were happening in such a way that the Manuel Filomena de Miranda, Yvonne Costa, they were asking them verbally, but these spirits were responding to them through symbolic therapy. That's what Manuel Filomena de Miranda explains to us. Even their communication style is more evolved. So it's not that they have to verbalize; they presented to them the ideas, And one day we'll hopefully understand this better, the symbolic telepathy that he's mentioning here. They also got into the conversations of what was happening on Earth, right? Perhaps the difficulties that they see. As they were conversing, as they were explaining what was happening, or let's say exchanging the ideas what was happening here, the spirit also mentioned about the sad condition of the Earth, and comment on problems such as war, crimes, abortion, euthanasia, suicides, and the death penalty, right? And the things that we see that is bothering us, and to let's say alleviate or bring the ideals back to the endeavor. Dr. Santana changed the environment by calling their attention. And actually, Manuel Filomena says that trying to keep the moment from becoming altogether too gloomy and afflictive, the mentor expertly begun describing the expectations for the work at hand, as well as the happiness of being able to help construct the good wherever the vestiges of evil are found. In no moment whatsoever, Manuel Filomena de Miranda mentions that the spirits were sad. Quite the opposite. They looked at their difficulties that we're going through right now with compassion. And that was what gave them the drive to really come and do the work and to connect with our environment right now to make this change. It became a challenge. It's more like of a challenge that we accept for the better of one another. Now, they go and they visit the house, a second house in this chapter, the house of Alonso and Eunice as well. The couple were actually trying to become pregnant, right? And they were having Alonso had a surgical procedure that kind of slowed his capability to, if we can say that way, to procreate with Eunice. And they were praying for the ability for her to obviously become pregnant. And they were visited, and they were given the amazing ability to receive one of these minds from Alcyone. And it was it's interesting that they go into the establishment while they're sleeping. And this is actually after a moment of intimacy that they had in the physical realm. And as they go to sleep, they go into their house, and they were visited by Dr. Santana, Yvonne Costa, and Manuel Filomena Miranda, and this mind that was actually from this spirit from Alcyone. Dr. Santana, always very courteous and ethical, introduced us to the kind couple Alonso and Eunice, who were expecting about the possibility of being given the blessing of children. And here's what Dr. Santana says, and we're going to finish this chapter on this positive note. He talks about they go through the moment in which I'll take this out. They go through into this moment of the fertilization of the egg, the transformation of life, or let's say the start of life in terms of the reincarnatory process. They bring the mother to a location where, in the house, obviously, that they perceive that the process is happening of the sperm going towards the egg, going through the whole thing, and they bring the spirit near them to choose actually the correct cell, so that sperm can actually go directly into the egg, so that the whole thing can start, the whole process. I wouldn't say start, or given continuation. And it's very beautiful the way he describes as well in the treatment with the passes, the treatment with the kindness that they actually take care of this moment. And it's very sublime, and it's amazing. And the explanation given is that the learned geneticist, who is Dr. Santana, explained to us that it was an amorphous substance in activity, consisting of hundreds of millions of sperms, 3 million of which could enter the uterus with the ability to survive up to 48 hours. He explained that the fertilization takes place within 10 hours approximately, when the chosen one begins its ascent up the vaginal tube through the cervix in order to penetrate the fallopian tube, where it will encounter the egg prepared to receive it. This miracle, he made it clear, is one of the grandest moments of life, which will soon become a human being, something that also occurs with slight differences in the plant and animal kingdoms. When the gametes unite, technically they are endowed with the ancestral inheritance, which we know are established thanks to the law of cause and effect through the perispirit. With all that we have said here, with all the difficulties that we have brought, and the alerts that Dr. Santana have brought to us in chapter 17 and now on chapter 18 as well, we see how he finalizes with life, with the reproduction of life, right? And I'm not talking about in the sense of only in the sense of the physical reincarnatory plan, but we breathe life. And this is a huge moment for us to contemplate life in our surroundings, right? The ability that we have now to be here incarnated, thanks to our parents, thanks to science, thanks to religion, thanks to all of those who have come before us. And here we are, given the ability to do the same, to multiply life, and to take this miracle, as he's saying over here, and to do something useful for ourselves and for others as well. The battles are ahead of us, yes. The conditions have been laid out based on our unfortunate, in most cases, choices of the past. But now we also have a choice. As much as others also have a choice, we do too, to say, no, not anymore. I would like to change the environment. I would like to change with life, as Dr. Santana is proposing to us here. More to come in this sense, because in the next chapters we will see more of this battle ahead of us, because nothing is easy, unfortunately, in this case, because, as we have mentioned, the seeds that we had planted in the past, sown in the past, they were not positive seeds. They were, let's say, unfortunate decisions. But I hope that you feel encouraged by this, alerted, but also encouraged to continue in your pathway of goodness, despite your beliefs, despite your faith, and in many cases here we're speaking, and we will be speaking for the Spiritist arena, following our Master Jesus as our guide and model. But let us not make the same mistake of the past. There is space for each one of us to live and comprehend one another as well. So at this point, what I would like to do is to go into our questions and comments and that we have. I will, for sure, as usually, try to make it as short as possible so we can go to the meats and potato of it in terms of questions and comments. I would like to give my hello again to all of those who are following us, who will be following us as well in the future, in this amazing study of this book. Before we go on, read the book, read these chapters. I would love to receive questions and comments that you may have. And hello to everyone who's here. I see Iracema, Kirsten, Nika Miyamo, Antonia is here with us, Paula is here with us, and many others who did not voice their comments here as well. Let's see here. First question here, Yasko. With these, make this a little bit bigger here, with these long back and forth cycles of religion, hatred, changing sides between oppressors and victims, isn't atheism and agnosticism a good break? Yasko, that's a good question. I never thought about this. I thought about the us as spirits incarnating in different faiths, right? So we can understand the other side. But I never thought about this idea of the atheist or being against completely. Um, I would like to think so if we're using our time to do something useful. An example: someone who is not religious whatsoever, who does not follow this faith or that, but is utilizing all its resources, his or her resources given to them, to science, for example, to become a scientist in an area that will allow us to live better, right? And we see this happening quite a bit. We see many scientists that they have no connection whatsoever with a religion, and sometimes that is actually planned. Where I would assume that this is actually planned, so they don't divert from the plan that they have put together for themselves along with their mentors. But that doesn't mean that I would say that's a good or bad thing. I think it becomes a good thing if the energy is used for something useful. For example, Dr. Santana, he's a man who can clearly, as we saw here, understand what has happened in religion, but he's a doctor of in this area of boosting, or actually I would take a step back, who was fighting on planet Earth abortion, right? Or giving ability for people to rethink about this idea of abortion. But he was a scientist that he can clearly understand in the spirit realm, or perhaps in the past lives study, or even vibrate it into the religious arena. So great questions. It really made me think, because I was thinking more, it crossed my mind when I was thinking about living or reincarnating in both sides, right? But this idea of taking a break, I think I would go into more utilizing our energies more properly. Giving continuation to Paula, when she says, how would the modern day concept of reparations apply to the Catholic Church? Thanks for putting me on the spot on that one. I don't know. I was not raised in the Catholic Church, so to speak, or to understand fully how they would be able to evolve in this sense. Paul, bottom line, I think that we not only apply this to the Catholic Church, but any of the belief system that we have, even science. As Yas said here, they can be good humanitarian, right? Or look, do unto others as we wish to be done on us. I think that if we go back to that principle, very simple principle, it's a win-win situation for me and for others if they apply it, and for me as well. Obviously, our decisions that we make today will not make a lot of people happy, because we have our baggages that we bring with us. So if there will be a major change on any of the arenas, religious in this sense, the Catholic Church, there will be a pushback as well, right? As we have seen with some of the reformations in the church system, there was a huge pushback too. Some of we have actually mentioned here tonight with the papal bulls as well that were written and established. So a lot of these things, it depends on who is involved and the consequences that it will bring as well. But I am hopeful to see many good changes. Daniel said, does Manuel Filomeno de Miranda give some hints on how to balance our intellect with our emotional states in order to be more tolerant on Earth? If anything, Daniel, that I have grasped from these chapters thus far, is that the Manuel Filomeno de Miranda is urging us, calling us to be open. How can we be open? It's not that we're just going to sit and pray, let's say, but obviously pray, but be of a positive being, and realistic as well, to see what is really happening around us, to be persistent with the teachings that we have inside of us and the resources that we have, including one another. This is how I believe, this is the teachings that he brings to us, to be balanced, right? To look at our emotions and say, hey, wait a minute, I think I'm going too far with my emotions with these decisions, or on the other side, I'm being too rational, where I'm not taking consideration my emotion and the emotions of others. Interesting enough, I am actually studying right now culture, right, in terms of business culture, where the culture that we establish in our works. And one of the things in a very, let's say, a hot topic in management right now, in any company that is trying to succeed in this crazy environment, competitive environment, is business culture. And that there is a huge calling for managers, leaders, to understand their feelings themselves, and in the same token, understand the feelings of others, to make decisions, to create a better environment. The reason this is happening in the corporate world, if we can say that way, it's because it's also happening out here. Because as it happens there, guess what? These leaders are now analyzing how they act at home. These leaders are now analyzing how they act, with others in society. And there is a huge studies in this element of a corporate world. So this is what I think we can gather from Manuel, is that he's like, look, let's understand ourselves, let's study who we are, and let's study what's around us as well. And it's not the material. He's talking about you, with me and others in general. So, great question. Paula, there are moral and virtual people who don't believe in Jesus and or God. Does Spiritism address the consequence after death? They will be in an environment that they were vibrating. They will be in an environment where they understand that they did goodness, and the others around them will be acting accordingly. And they will continue in the same vibration in terms of understanding that the goodness that they were driving, whether following Jesus or God or not, was the correct path to go. There will be no condemnation in terms of if they believe or not. I can believe, for example, on the fact of internet or not. But the truth of the matter is, I am presenting myself through a video right now that is being broadcast to many of us and being recorded as well. So whether I believe on the waves of the internet, it doesn't really discount the fact that I can do this and I can act with you right now. So it's the same thing that can be applied in the other sense. In many cases, and this is actually an issue with atheists, where they are told that or people tell them, or some of them do believe as well, that they will be relegated when they get to the other side, right? Or after they died, because they didn't believe in God, or they didn't follow this or that, let's say, religion. But that's a good point. But most importantly, what I would say is, we will continue to vibrate the way we were vibrating before, and we will attract minds alike as well, that they will have hopefully a better sense, a better understanding of what the Creator is. Because a lot of these atheists, a lot of the people or brothers and sisters who do not believe, is because they were tired of the imposition of the ideals or idea that God is this really mean or destructive force, that if we don't believe in he or she or it, that will be, let's say, struck or not well treated, to put in better words. Hopefully I answered the question. Next one, I have Yasko with literacy, scientific and philosophical human evolution. Reasoning is prevailing. So the old dogmas may go away, and the true teachings of Jesus that the Spiritism bring will illuminate the concept of sin, reparation, and expiation. It is true, Yasko, and I like this comment because um, recently I came in contact with a message that had some questions, brought some questions to our minds to in terms of what we hear and what we see in Spiritism, right? The teachings that we get, for example, from the book Heaven and Hell, when we are taught that there will be consequences in terms of punishment in our lives. And that can be distorted, that can be seen in a very negative way. But Spiritism comes to show that this punishment that perhaps is there, the consequences is not to make us mad or to make us feel discouraged, but the opposite. Much like our laws and most of our laws on planet Earth right now, I wouldn't say planet Earth, but at least here in the U.S., I mean, we can, since we don't want to take and extrapolate on something that we don't know much, but to make sure that we look at laws as a condition to help us, to stop us from infringing life in general, right? So the stop sign that is up the street is not to make anybody mad, but it's to stop a problem, a greater problem from happening. So it's important for us to analyze Spiritism this way as well, and not to make us upset like the warnings that we received here from Dr. Santana, but to truly see and analyze the greater context of our lives now and the reasons why we're here. And hopefully, yes, Spiritism will be the bridge that will come and say, guys, let's hold hands. We're here to help one another. Remember, the first part of this book, many of you remember, hopefully, and if you have read the book, you remember that Dr. White had a group of people that believed in different things. They followed different religions, and those minds were so effective working in the ocean to help the discarnated minds, and even the minds, the spirits who did not discarnate with the problems that they had there. And it's a point to be taken for all of us that despite what we believe, if we have a positive heart towards one another, we are following our Master Jesus. Because all of those who came after, and many of those who came before Master Jesus, they were under the guidance of our Master Jesus. And this is what Spiritism brings to us, not in the sense saying Jesus is better, or Jesus, because he is the higher order spirit who has not only visited us, physically speaking, but he has been with us and is with us through the many missionaries that he has allowed to reincarnate here on earth and to guide us as well. And that is the Moors that we mentioned here today, the rabbis who have guided us in many ways and still guide us today as well. To finalize, because of time, we have here Paula saying, why does the Jewish faith seem to have more persecutors? It's if we can compare the faith or the religion, it's an older religion than Christianity, right, and the Muslim faith. So I believe that may be one of the reasons we can see it. That kind of gives an answer to what you're asking. But we would have to study a little bit more. I would have to study a little bit more to give a more secured answer on this. But I believe because of how old the being an older belief or faith, we have seen them targeted more than others as well. And the acceptance of the Christianity by the Roman Empire as well, kind of made things a little bit worse in that sense. But there's more that goes way back as well, when the reason why, right, the Jewish faith came to be. So that would be my, let's say, I don't want to call poor answer, but the direct answers to this. But I lack the full resources to give you a more eloquent answer to that. But that's definitely things that we need to think about it, to allow us to come together. If we take all of this away from us, folks, if we take our beliefs, our titles, who we are in terms of gender, anything that we can, and we look at that mind, that heart, that spirit as an evolutionary spirit, just like we are, guess what? We will be more effective in our daily lives. We need to learn how to guide ourselves in this sense. We have all these groups of people now, which I find amazing, how we are invited to follow this group of people, follow that type, this new agenda, and we forget who we are. Right? We become lost with the many choices that is presented to us, and we really become ineffective in a way in our day-to-day lives, and what we were presented in terms of the capabilities, the resources to become a better brother or sister, son or daughter, mother or father. We forget this small things of life, and we engage in detrimental battles that is tough. And all that we're doing is giving in to the dark minds of the past. I would like to share my screen one more time here, because I want to make sure that we put that we show what we're going to be presenting in the near future. Usually about a month, giving time for all of us to study. The next two will be getting ready for spiritual Armageddon. Look at the title, folks. Confrontation with the darkness. No wonder Yvonne Costa actually asked in the book, okay, are you trying to prepare us for something harder? And guess what? It is. So let us prepare ourselves. Let us read. Send me questions. Send me comments. If I have said something that it was not well explained, I would love to hear from you. Make this a discussion. Hopefully one day we will sit down and we will read together and study this book together. With no further ado, I would like to invite everyone to say our final prayer, wishing one another an amazing rest of the Saturday, as well as a beautiful Sunday that is going to be ahead of us. Let us try to connect with what's great inside of us. Let us think of our purpose here on planet Earth. Let us think of the purpose of others on planet Earth as well. Together, if we start vibrating this way, we will do what Daniel asked earlier today. We'll be more humane. We will bring reason into our decisions. We will also bring our feelings into our decision and be more balanced. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're in need of, right? In this moment of pandemic, the difficulties that we're seeing now in the political arena, all the riots and all the things, let us vibrate life, folks. And this is my wish to you, hoping that we can do this with one another. On this note, I would like to ask our dear Creator to guide us in this amazing reconstruction of planet Earth. We come together as Christians, or whatever faith we may follow, to ask for forgiveness for what has been done in the past. Whether we were there directly or indirectly, following the ideals, the unfortunate ideals, we ask for forgiveness. But most importantly, our Lord, we also ask for the courage the persistence to utilize the resources that we have in our hands right now. And be more assertive with our choices. Be more assertive with the energies that surrounds us to construct a new future, along with these minds that are following us from Alcyon. Let us be visionaries of the future and think of how beautiful our lives will be tomorrow, whether close or a little bit distant, if we make the right decisions, make the right choices, putting ourselves aside and always elevating our Master Jesus. While we're treating one another. We are thankful for these reminders, for these minds who come before us, who has come before us to provide us guidance. Wishing everyone an amazing weekend, giving each other a hug, as if we're asking for one another to hug our family members, hug our brothers and sisters, send a hug to those at work, at school, whoever crosses our minds and our hearts, so they can feel this joy, this change in the environment, and always procreating life. May Jesus be with all of us now and ever, and so be it. Until next time, dear friends, and thank you.